Everyone pictures the Great Wall of China as one continuous, ancient structure, a singular project built by a single visionary emperor. This is, of course, a fantastic way to be completely wrong. The Great Wall is more like a series of terrible group projects assigned over and over again for 1,800 years, with each new leader looking at the previous mess and saying, "Yes, more of that, please." The first thing to get out of the way is the ghoulishly fun myth that it's packed with the bodies of workers, a sort of mortar and misery mix. Archaeologically, that's a no. You can't build a stable defensive wall on decomposing human bodies. Turns out, even the most ruthless tyrants understood basic engineering. The truth, however, is somehow more grim and far less efficient. Our story really kicks off with Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor, around 221 BC. This is a man who unified 7 warring states, standardized everything from currency to axlewitz, and then immediately developed an obsession with home security. He looked at the scattered defensive walls left by his rivals and decided to connect them into one glorious, unbroken line of defense against the Xiongnu nomads to the north. His project wasn't so much about innovative building as it was about brute force logistics on a scale previously unimaginable. The goal was to create a 3,000-mile-long statement that said, "Please stay out," while also conveniently serving as a massive open-air prison for anyone he didn't like. It was a multi-purpose marvel of autocratic architecture. So, who gets the honor of building this continental masterpiece? The recruitment process was wonderfully simple. Everyone. Qin Shi Huang's workforce was a delightful mix of 300,000 soldiers, 500,000 conscripted peasants, and an unknown number of convicts. Getting a job on the wall was easy. Owe taxes? You're hired. Read a book the emperor didn't like? Congratulations, you're a stonemason now. The historian Sima Qian, who wasn't exactly the emperor's biggest fan, wrote that the wall builders were driven like cattle. They worked in extreme weather, from blistering summers to Siberian-level winters, with little more than rags for clothing. Food was scarce, water was often contaminated, and safety regulations were, shall we say, a future concept. It was less of a construction project and more of a human wave experiment. This brings us to the big, morbid question: the body count. The popular figure thrown around for the Qin-era wall is a cool 1 million deaths. Where does this number come from? Mostly educated guesswork and a healthy dose of historical embellishment. There were no census takers keeping meticulous records of dead peasants. The number comes from taking the estimated workforce of nearly 1 million people, factoring in the abysmal conditions, a construction period of about a decade, and applying a horrifically high mortality rate. Some modern estimates are more conservative, suggesting around 400,000 deaths. Frankly, arguing whether it's 400,000 or 1 million feels like debating the optimal number of ways to have a nightmare. The point is, the death toll was astronomical. Falling off the wall was probably one of the better ways to go. At least it was quick. The real killers were far more mundane and miserable. The number 1 cause of death was almost certainly exhaustion, combined with malnutrition. The laborers were fed a diet of coarse grains, barely enough to sustain them through a 12-hour day of hauling rock. Then came the diseases. When you have hundreds of thousands of poorly fed people living in cramped, unsanitary camps, you've basically created a petri dish for things like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. Add in the brutal northern winters causing frostbite and pneumonia, and the scorching summers causing heat stroke, And let's not forget the occasional attack from the very nomads the wall was supposed to keep out, who probably saw the construction sites as convenient, well-stocked targets. After the Qin dynasty collapsed, partly due to the massive resentment these projects created, you'd think China might have cooled it with the whole giant wall thing. And for a while they did. Other dynasties, like the Han and Sui, patched it up or added sections, but the obsessive nation-breaking drive was gone. They had other priorities, like developing incredible new technologies, writing beautiful poetry, and perfecting the art of bureaucracy. For about 1,500 years, the wall was largely left to crumble, a testament to a former emperor's terrifying ambition. It became a ruin, a landmark, a source of building materials for local villagers. It seemed the age of mega walls was over. Obviously, it wasn't. Enter the Ming Dynasty in 1368. After kicking out the Mongols, they had a severe case of what we might call nomad-related anxiety. Their solution was predictable. Let's build a wall. But not just any wall, a bigger, better, stronger wall with advanced technology like bricks and stone held together with a surprisingly effective mortar made of sticky rice. Yes, sticky rice. The Ming Wall, the one you see in all the glorious photographs, is a masterpiece of 15th century engineering. It was also another colossal drain on the empire's resources and manpower, stretching for over 5,500 miles. They essentially looked at Qin Shi Huang's deadly project and said, "Great prototype, but we can make it deadlier." The labor force for the Ming Wall was subtly different. While conscripts and convicts were still part of the equation, the bulk of the work was done by soldiers. Millions of soldiers were stationed along the northern frontier, and their duties included both guarding and building the wall. This was a slight improvement, as soldiers were generally better fed and organized than a random assortment of abducted peasants. Specialized guilds of artisans, masons, brickmakers, carpenters were also employed, bringing a level of professionalism the Qin project lacked. But don't mistake better for good. It was still incredibly dangerous work in a hostile environment, and the death toll remained appalling. It was the difference between a death march and a really hazardous commute. So while the bodies aren't in the wall, the area around it is another story. This is what earned the wall its other charming nickname, the longest cemetery on Earth. For both the Qin and Ming projects, workers who died were buried in mass graves alongside the wall's path. Countless small graveyards have been discovered by archaeologists, silent testament to the human cost. There was no sending bodies home. That was a logistical impossibility. You died, you were buried, and your family back home might hear about it a year later, if they were lucky. The wall snakes across the landscape, and its shadow falls on the remains of the very people who gave their lives to build it. So, metaphorically, the nickname is disturbingly accurate. After centuries of construction and a death toll that rivals many wars, here's the beautiful, tragic punchline. It didn't really work. At least, not perfectly. The wall was a decent deterrent against small-scale raids, but any determined, large army could find a way through. It was incredibly expensive to garrison, and there were always sections that were undermanned. Gates could be bribed, walls could be scaled, and sometimes people just went around. The final glorious failure came in 1644, when the Manchus, the very people the Ming Wall was supposed to stop, marched into China and ended the dynasty. They didn't heroically breach the wall. A Ming general just opened a gate and let them in. After millions of lives lost, the empire fell because of a single unlocked door. Today, the Great Wall is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a symbol of Chinese endurance and strength, which is a lovely bit of historical rebranding. It's a marvel of engineering, absolutely, but it's also a monument to the staggering cost of autocratic paranoia and the idea that you can solve complex geopolitical problems by just building a really big wall. It stands as proof that human beings are capable of undertaking projects of unimaginable scale, and also of getting the fundamental premise completely wrong. It's a testament to human ingenuity and, simultaneously, a 5,500-mile-long tombstone for 1,000,000 forgotten souls. It's complicated. Next time you see a picture of it, just remember the unbelievable amount of suffering that went into every single stone. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!